Principal's report, did we already do that? Or?
Hector, I know you have a few other points you want to touch on, but Mr. Mannon's been sitting there for a while. Should we let him do the handbook so he can get back tomorrow morning?
Yeah, let's get him in.
Sorry, Mr. Mannon. Mr. Mannon is the Assistant Principal of Student Affairs, and he's here to address the handbook, which Ms. Sierra volunteered to be on as the board's advisory person for Mr. Mannon.
Thank you. Good evening, board. This is the first read. Last year, we had 2 reads established that I think that went well to have a healthy discussion with the board on current topics and changes for the next school year. So due to COVID for this year, our annual report will look a little bit different in regards to our expectations. The major changes that we typically include are condensed due to we just don't know where ISB is going to be at with the learning requirements for next year. So in regards to like final exam exemptions and language like that we typically look at, we had time, I guess, more to address a couple things. So I'm going to outline one, dress code and an updated language that we'd like to recommend, and then just some formatting things that we're going to do to increase student accessibility and the easiness to read and access our handbook. So in preparation for this report, I solicited feedback from parents, students, faculty, and staff, as well as the administration. This year, I also worked with our Student Leadership Forum that met 3 times, and just to solicit their feedback in regards to areas that they would like to modify or enhance in our handbook. Before we begin with the report, I would just like to point out that these recommendations will create what we believe is an equitable handbook procedure that is inclusive to all students. Updating our current dress code language will decrease the learning loss due to hat and hood enforcement, limit unnecessary power struggles and microaggressions with staff, and provide opportunities for student individuality. Our goal next year is to welcome students that either have been in a hybrid situation or in a remote setting, in-person or remote setting. We want to welcome all back, and we know that there's going to be struggles with students that have been learning in a remote setting coming back. And so the last thing we want to do as soon as they walk in our door is say, hey, take your hood and your hat off. We really want to make this an environment that's inclusive, and enhancing their individuality. And I think the language that we recommend today will do that. It also provides confidence within our students in eliminating our gender and cultural biases, and that goes along with the equity work that we've been doing this year. Okay, so at this time we're going to look at the report that we sent in the board packet. So the recommendation with the dress code is to eliminate the itemized procedures that we've had and just align the handbook procedure with the board policy, which is 7:160. That procedure basically states that a student's appearance, including their dress, grooming, must not disrupt the educational process, interfere with maintaining a positive teaching and learning climate, or compromise reasonable standards of health, safety, and the decency as directed by the administration. Any clothing that's deemed inappropriate or goes against that board policy, those students will be required to change. And then the recommendations that we're looking to for the board to look at are having students wear a hat, authorizing that, and hats facing straight forward or straight backwards, and hats must be visible to staff and not interfere with the sightline of any staff or students. Students may continue to wear it for religious reasons. Headwear not limited to headscarves or bandanas, hoodies, sweatshirts. The wearing of the hood is allowed, but the face must be visible. Obviously, footwear would be required at all times, and then wearing the hat or hood in the classroom or instructional environment will be at the sole discretion of the classroom teacher. Questions on that before we go to the second item? The second item that we're going to address is just proposing to add a building directory on the front page with associated QR codes and building contacts that were never included in our handbook before. We just think that, and this was a recommendation from our Student Leadership Forum, just to have like a top 10 list, and then we sorted through a conversation of what those top 10 things were with our students and then also with our deans. And so we came up with that list that we included here in the board packet. We just think that if we can have a top 10 list with associated links, that'll just be on the front page or inside our front page of our handbook. Kids can just hit that with the camera, go right to that link, and then see what they're looking for instead of kind of sift through everything in the handbook. We do have a physical handbook that we provide all of our students during our residency events also as a planner. As we're in the remote, we've started in the remote setting. Now we're bringing students back and have, been on that train for a while. We need, I think, eventually look at maybe an online handbook. But at this point, when students come back, we want this next school year to be as normal as possible, given whatever mitigations are in place. And thus, we want the handbook to reflect that and also provide some opportunities for individuality for our students.
Dave, I did not receive any questions from the board, so unless there's something that came up during Dave's presentation or that you read on the packet, I think, but you did have one question.
I have questions about mask wearing, and I guess how you would consider or address or think about mask wearing as a safety element or otherwise.
Yeah, that was a good question and something that we originally thought of. I think we need to get this into the editor by I think March, in the middle of March, so we can get it printed and ready by residency. So I think what would be easiest would be provide like a little a box that would just outline our PPE expectations for students for next year. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we have some more information from the state and some guidance on that as to what next year will look like. It's either that or we could do a sticker that we can add later on. So we're currently looking at those two options, but either way, there will be something on our front page that'll outline our expectations for next year with the PPE.
I mean, I think it's generally covered because you mentioned safety, just not explicitly called out, which is why I asked.
Yep, that was a great point. Thank you.
And Dave, if we just alter the verbiage minimally to say, in the event we are still dealing with the impact of COVID-19, social distancing masks may be required.
Yep.
Right? I mean, there's something general you could put in the front page.
Yep, that's easy.
Yep.
Other questions?
Good. No questions?
All right. Thank you.
Good job, Dave.
First read. Thank
Sorry you had to
very
wait that
much.
long.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate your patience.
So you're looking for approval next meeting, correct?
Yes.
So if the board does have any other questions that come up or come up in passing, please send those to me right away so we can, him or Dave or Hector can address those at the next meeting so we can get this approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Sierra, you're happy with everything that's been discussed, right? I mean, that's kind of why we have it like that, right?
Yes.
I think we just have one, and I don't know if it's in there, I gotta check it. It almost slipped my mind, if you remember. It was something we had the discussion with Miss Augustine about how many semesters they need to do or something.
That's in the curriculum guide.
But it also tagged to the curriculum guide that we couldn't make the change from the curriculum committee until the new guide came out.
The new guide came out in October.
Right.
So I think we
with this-
adjusted that.
Yeah, so I want to double check that. So we got to check those notes from that last curriculum meeting.
Yeah, I think you wanted to have a reference page in there so parents could see how many semesters a highly selective university, college, is that what you're discussing?
No, but then there was also language. So now a student technically could graduate in 3 years.
Yes, I understand. Okay, early graduate, I'll check on that.
Yes, and so there was some language that we talked in the curriculum committee that needed to be caught in this version of the curriculum handbook.
Dr. Frais, can you also make a note to look at that? I think it says early graduates have to complete 3.5 years.
Yes.
But I thought we were adding a sentence that in the event it could be what the principal could.
Something
Yes.
there, and I want to make sure during that meeting there was 1 or 2 things that we had to close the loop on this current edition.